message that, given the state of our economy and, the weaknesses around, that the poor infrastructure and weak institutions would also create vulnerabilities for our local industries as well as our SMEs. But I think the overall message was that despite the issues and problems, that they are transient in relation to the destination we're going and the opportunities that are there for us in after. So for this afternoon session, I have with me two erudite speakers who have deep specialist knowledge on the manufacturing industry, the after and the issues. And I will start by introducing Mr. Ambrose Oruche. I believe Mr. Oruche is here with us. Mr. Oruche is the Director of Corporate Services at the Manufacturing Association of Nigeria. He will be sharing his thoughts with us on the enabling environment for Nigerian manufacturers under AFTA. Then after him, we're also going to have Mr. Taiwo Oyedele. Mr. Oyedele is the Fiscal Policy Partner and West African Tax Lead at PwC. He will be speaking with us on the imperatives for fiscal policy under AFTA for Nigerian businesses. So please, you'll join me in welcoming both Mr. Oruche and Mr. Oyedele. And before I hand over to our speakers to take us through their presentation, please let me remind you your questions and answers. You should type them into the Q&A box, text box in the Zoom platform. Do not use the chat box that has been disabled. At the close of the presentations, we will have a Q&A session and all these questions will be dealt with. So please feel free at any time to type in those questions. So at this point, I will call on the first speaker, Mr. Oruche. You have 20 minutes allotted to you, and please over to you, Mr. Oruche.
Yeah, thank you, moderator. And let me first appreciate the organizers of the Nigeria Economic Outlook for being consistent. I've been following up these discussions every January, and I think they are doing great work for the business community. I have to also thank those that have spoken before me, especially my good friend, the DG of LCCI, Uda Yusuf. He has really pointed out a lot of issues that we needed for further discussions. But let me first, I'm not going to read my entire paper because he has dealt with some of the issues that I had in my paper. Dealt specifically for the enabling environment, but before I go straight to that, I needed to remind us that the trade agreement, the AFTA, is to bring together all the 55 member states of the African Union, covering a market a market of more than 1.2 billion. That's what we are looking at, people, and then also having a GDP of $3.4 trillion. That's a huge market that everyone would like to play in. And the challenge we have currently is that in Africa, Africa is the region that has the least trading among themselves when you have to compare with other regions, other continents of the world. And that's what the AFTA intends to do is to encourage trading among the African countries. And that's what we have to look at. What is the enabling environment? How do Nigeria manufacturing sector play a major part in this huge market that have been created, in this huge economy, the GDP that have been created by AFTA? So that takes me to my paper, slide 5. Sorry, I thought I will not, I didn't remember that there would be some people that would give a background information, and the person that prepared the slide did not take that into consideration. So let me take to slide 5, if you will not mind, so that I will not bore my readers on them. Yes. Now, what I'm going to look at is, yes, what should be done? What should be done? That is creating an enabling environment for the manufacturers to thrive. The first thing we looked at is enhancing trade facilitation. Enhancing trade facilitation. what we find out that most of the agencies that are to encourage trade facilitation are busy internal revenue generation agency and not trade facilitation. If we continue like this, the manufacturing sector will not be able to take advantage of this after. So we are saying that there should be, that we should undertake domestic structural reforms, review ease of doing business action plan to include dealing with systematic issues like procedures, cooperation between customs and border agencies on customs compliances issues. This issue, I think the Honorable Minister, the question was asked to the Honorable Minister, how do we coordinate activities of the agencies that are affected in trade facilitation, which he gave a good answer to that. But with that have been a challenge that we have, that there is no coordination between government agencies that will facilitate trade. So we are asking if Nigeria has to take advantage of this, if the manufacturing sector has to take advantage of this, there should be a systematic review, structural reforms. There should be an intention to a deliberate intentions to create a harmonious working relationship between the customs and the border agencies on custom compliance issues. So that's the first thing. And then we also talked about port reforms. I think Muda Yusuf mentioned it. If you have done business in our port, you will agree with me that our port is the most less efficient port in Africa. Not even West Africa, and that will not help our competitiveness. That will not help us taking advantage of the huge market created by after. Like one speaker said, this after coming has made us to up our games. If we insisting continuously saying that Nigerian market is big enough for us to play into, we find out that other countries will come into this economy and play it better than us. So it is the high time we begin to look at these issues that are affecting businesses and see how we can ameliorate them, how we can resolve them, so that we can take advantage of it. We also talked about continued support for diversification of the export base, continued support of diversification of export base. This brings to the question of export grants. What are we doing? Many countries that we are going to play in this business are already created export grants or export grant, expansion grants, or whatever name it may be called, as an incentive to help businesses to develop their export base. What are we doing? Those that have been exported, taking advantage of our export expansion grant, has not been paid. Government came up with so many policies, somersaults on that issue. That will not help us to take advantage of this. So we also talked about infrastructure reforms, roads, railway. Thank government for what they are doing on the railway. Talk about energy. I listened to Honorable Minister on the plans to increase energy to the manufacturing sector, especially the issue of gas pricing, the issue of gas pricing is key. I think that will help the manufacturing sector to be competitive. Because when you buy gas at a price that international market is at a price that is lower, higher than international market price, it begins to wonder whether you'll be able to compete with international products. So the next thing, the next price, and the next slide is improve policy coordination. Improve policy coordination. That brings us to, Muda really put it together, issue of foreign exchange, which of the exchange do our business people take advantage of. But what we are looking at is review the use of both monetary and fiscal policies as substitutes for an effective trade and industrial policy. We must have a harmonious relationship between the monetary and fiscal policy of it and make use of it as a effective trade and industrial policy. We also need to review existing trade and industrial policy framework within the context of Nigeria's competitiveness and capacity, to review the existing trade policy framework within the context of Nigeria's competitiveness and capacity for us to enhance the gains of after. So what are we saying here? What we are saying here is that the current industrial policy has to be reviewed so that we look at the issues that affect competitiveness of manufacturing and then offer solutions and deal with those issues so that we can be competitive. We can, to an extent, be competitive so that to avoid us being a dumping ground for other African countries. When the president of Ghanaian president and South African president was talking, they were mentioning countries that were at the forefront of the after. That shows that there are countries that are already positioning themselves to take advantage of Nigerian market. So we shouldn't allow them to make us a dumping ground where every other product made in African countries find its place in Nigeria. And that's why we are talking about making Nigeria competitive and enhancing our capacity so that we can take advantage of the after. Then other external trade environments, which include negotiating supply chains with bilateral partners. We put these because we know that government can help us to see how we can meaningfully integrate Nigeria into global supply chains, repositioning our e-commerce and IT technologies so that we can facilitate trade integration with other African countries. It will also involve identifying partners and areas of cooperation to facilitate seamless trade for Nigeria. When we talk about making us be relevant in global value chain, is that Nigeria IT infrastructure is still at the lowest end. We need to upgrade the IT infrastructure so that we can participate in the global value chain. We can join other developed countries to be able to take advantage of production facilities in every part, in the most cost savings environment. So if we are part of the global value chain, we can at nick of time take our raw materials from Japan or from any part of the world to complete our production process within a shortest possible time. That's what we are asking that the Nigeria government should help us by firstly by increasing the IT facilitation so that we can take advantage of it. Then the fourth thing is that, or the third thing is that we have to develop targeted trade promotion initiatives, targeted trade promotion initiatives that can re-engineer Nigeria's trade engagement with the African markets and align with sustainable development results of Nigeria's development agenda as it relates to manufacturing and building resilience in the sector. Develop targeted trade promotion initiatives. What are we talking about? What are we expecting government to do? Looking at all the other countries in Africa, how do we ensure that Nigeria SMEs, even large corporations, penetrate each of these markets? So there should be a systematic arrangement to design a policy that will enable Nigerian products to penetrate all these African countries, so that and see how we can develop a target trade promotion. Take, for instance, what is the need in Rwanda? We develop a trade promotion that Nigerian goods that will satisfy the needs in Rwanda will be sent to Rwanda in a more coordinated way. Thereby, we take advantage of that market. That's what we are proposing, that if we have to take advantage of this huge market created by AFTA and not being at the receiving end of other countries, we must look at these issues holistically and see how we can develop agenda towards it in order to ensure that we make it, we help Nigerian manufacturing. Now, the fourth one is develop strategy to curb trade malpractices. You know, the major challenge that killed the textile industries in Nigeria was trade malpractices. It's not only textile, it's also affected most drug manufacturers, pharmaceutical industries. It's even affecting all segments of Nigerian manufacturing. So we should develop strategies to curb trade malpractices like smuggling, counterfeiting, over-invoicing, under-invoicing, and production or importation of substandard products. There are agencies of government that have been assigned with this responsibility. And if they live up to their responsibility, we will not have much problem with this. But the corruption that have eaten deep into Nigerian society has affected us from achieving, looking at it into this issue, for curbing this issue, because if we allow this to continue to fester, Nigeria will not take advantage of AFTA. We will make ourselves where everyone take advantage of us. Because if we allow trade malpractices such as under-invoicing or over-invoicing to continue in this economy, we will kill the spirit of competition. If we allow smugglers to continue to take advantage of the Nigerian economy, the industries will fold. And once that happens, what it means is that everything that Nigeria will be using will come from other African countries. And that's what we are pleading with the agencies. I'm happy that Minister is part of us, and he will take this to ensure that agencies that are responsible for curbing the trade malpractices look into this issue and see how we can stop, especially the issue of counterfeiting, passing off. You know, where a brand in Nigeria is making wave, someone will take it to the brand and copy clone and bring to Nigeria, and it will pass through the ports, it will pass through all the channels and comes to the market. And the company has no option but to fold. So is part of what we are talking about for us to enhance environment of operations. And finally, establish an effective monitoring mechanism. Let's not just go to bed and say, well, after has taken off, Nigerian businesses should play their part. But we need to ensure that we have a monitoring mechanism to ensure that we are not being shortchanged by any country. And that this cannot be done solely by organized private sector. That's why we need government to assist us in ensuring that a committee be set up to monitor the implementation of this AFTA, so that when we find out that it becomes injurious to the Nigerian economy, we can offer a remedy or possibly opt out of the agreement. Yeah, that's what we are proposing, that there must be need to establish an effective monitoring mechanism. In conclusion, the AFTA opportunities and challenges shows that a well-structured framework for export diversification and sustainable trade growth and development by improving Nigeria's trade environment to increase competitiveness, boost in domestic trade, strengthen Nigeria's external trade policy, and increase integration of Nigeria into the global economy is critical for us to benefit from this AFTA. If not, we'll be at a losing end. If not, Nigeria will be made a dumping ground. So we need to find way Nigeria should be integrated into the global economy. In order to ensure trade gains, an assessment of the opportunities for increasing current bilateral trade, both direct and investment through the removal of specific non-tariff barriers, policy, legal, regulatory, cross-cutting, etc., highlighting short terms, various versus medium terms options and priorities in line with Nigerian industrialization and job creation objectives. That's what we are looking at, that Nigeria will need to boost bilateral trade and investment to create economic growth and create jobs by concretely addressing the regulatory and other market access barriers and identify trade distortion protections that have been hindering our businesses. So on this note, I don't want to bore you repeating what others have said about AFTA. So that's made me to go straight to what we are proposing to enable Nigeria take advantage of it. Thank you so much for listening.
Okay, so thank you very much, Mr. Oruche, for that lucid and practical description, really, of the issues with the enabling environment, for Nigeria for our manufacturers under AFTA. Okay, I think I'm okay. I think you All right, so thank you very much again. I will say, Mr. Oruche, for that very practical description of the issues in the enabling environment for our manufacturers in Nigeria for the AFTA. And we hear you very loud and clear. Some of the key issues we've talked about: limited credit availability, transportation infrastructure, port reforms, continued unstable power supply, and how we need to develop strategies to curb trade malpractices, counterfeiting. And I think the message that is coming out here is that we need to avoid being a dumping ground for other African countries, and that there are countries already positioning themselves to take advantage of the Nigerian market. So at this point, what you are asking for is a proposal from the government to help Nigerian businesses, product SMEs, in order to be able to penetrate strategically other African countries. And I think that's a lot of food for thought. And these are the areas we really need to delve into.